So I am Michael. I'm the CEO and founder of Everlane. We launched, I guess, 7 months ago, and we are an online luxury retailer, luxury brand. We design and have others manufacture our own clothing and sell directly to the consumer. So, I guess I'll start out with a simple thing that we learned. I don't come from fashion, and I knew nothing about it when we started about, I guess, actually a year and a half ago. So there were two things that sort of came to us and why we started Everlane, and then I'll jump into some of the cool things we do. The first is, I apologize for the women who actually own a Longchamp, but if you do, you paid 8 times what it costs to make. Actually on this, it's more like 11 times. This costs about $130. It is nylon. Not coated on the inside. It's coated on the inside. There's no other pieces, and there's a leather strap. This is a Celine. You paid probably about 9 times. This is a Volextra. It's probably more like 15 times. And I have nothing against these brands, by the way. I blame the retailers. This is a James purse. You definitely paid 8 times for this. And then this is a Zegna, and you definitely paid, I would say, 9 to 10 times. In fact, on leather belts, you can often pay as much as 15 times. So as someone who came out of the sort of tech space, it's sort of like, why does this have to be this way? And so we really started with this idea of vertical e-commerce. And that is the idea that we can cut out the middleman, we can cut out stores, and a product that costs $670, which we are in the same factories, sells for $50 because of the inefficiencies in the market. We sell for $15. So hopefully you can attest to our product because you actually own it, and others do. But it's the same thing almost exactly. Obviously we have our own design, but that is really the model, and we've sort of cut out all the fat, and we've started out with the basic t-shirt. You become a member, and every month we sort of launch new styles. The big difference between our brand and sort of what we see as the opportunity here is what I see as a big lack of transparency in the fashion industry. And so if you were to go to everlane.com and you were to sort of see our blog, one of the big things we do is we tell you the cost of almost everything we manufacture, which is sort of kind of crazy for people in the fashion world, but for us it's been something that we think is just really important, in the sense that we're not here to, yes, we make a profit, but we're not here to mark things up like crazy. And so that's why when you see even our totes, our weekender bag that we'll be launching, on every single thing we do, what we believe is the opportunity is to tell people what things cost to make. And so these are our actual costs. So the other big thing about our model is we are completely vertically integrated, which means we cut out physical stores and we cut out working with retailers, which means when we produce this t-shirt in the US, it takes us basically a combination of 6 to 8 weeks, 8 weeks from sourcing the fabric, and then about 5 weeks of production time. So we can replenish anything from scratch to finish in 8 weeks. What we now do is we actually keep blanks at the dye house. So we do what's called a garment dye program. So we keep blanks at the dye house. We can replenish any style in 3 weeks. Hopefully when we're big enough and we have the distribution center right next to the dye house, we can replenish any style within a week. Which means all of a sudden you're completely changing the game when you see places like J. Crew work on way longer than 24-week cycles. When we do a weekender bag, we actually travel straight to China. In this case, we don't do everything in the US, but we'll go straight to China, we'll work on it, and in a month and a half we can have it in our factory, or in our DC, and then out the door. The other brilliant thing about this is you can get data almost instantly about what actually sells. So the first one is viral sharing. So one of the big things about Everlane is you actually have to become a member. With that, we actually track every single source, every single refer, and we encourage people to share. When we first launched this, during our pre-launch, we got for every one person we got in the door, they invited 5 others. So we actually had a huge, for actually a period of time, about 2 days, we're actually viral. Which means, for those of you who know, our viral coefficient was greater than 1, which means for a period of 2 days, every person who came in was actually bringing in more than one person. And so as a result, it was growing exponentially, and then, viral coefficients decay. So nonetheless, we do all kinds of tactics. There's a couple new ones launching, but it's sort of the future of, I would say, online commerce, is figuring out ways to get your audience to speak about you. In the offline world, it's called Net Promoter Score. It's, hey, how likely are you to recommend our product to a friend? In the online world, the whole model is, let's take that and give you Facebook and Twitter to share with your friends. And we see about 60% of shares coming through email, 30% coming through Facebook, and everything else is basically Twitter and whatever. Twitter is actually not that great for this stuff. It's all Facebook and email. And so I wouldn't discount the value of email, because literally through email, all we do is give them a URL, and we don't make it easy to share through email, and yet we still see 60%. And the only reason I would say for that is because it's very personal and a one-to-one communication. So sharing on Facebook is like blasting to your friends. You don't want to sort of, what I would say, sell yourself out. So what a lot of people do is they take this link and just send it to friends. The other thing that's interesting about the online world is figuring out what marketing tactics work. So we have a Tumblr with 75,000 followers. The benefit of that is, in the old world of marketing, you ran a TV ad, or you ran it on some sort of like, time where where the cost wasn't so much, and you ran multiple TV ads. You had to create these TV ads, and you had to see what actually worked. For us, what we do is we create low fidelity things like this, which cost us $365 to make through a freelance artist. We put it up on Tumblr, and we see what resonates. And obviously, 18,000 notes, that resonates. Pictures of our team do not resonate. People do not care about who we are. And so that's actually very useful data, because you do less of that and more of this. And you all of a sudden can scale your marketing much faster than you ever would in traditional. So this is a way that we use Tumblr to figure out how to build our brand. What resonates, what works. And so, for anyone who's ever trying to figure out, hey, how do I tell the story, using social channels and building some sort of audience, and then sort of seeing what resonates and what things, always track engagement across everything you do. We do it across Facebook, we do it across Twitter, but you have to be careful, because on Twitter, what works really well is quotes. So we post quotes occasionally, and we can get 50 to 100 retweets. But then the question is, does that actually build the brand? And that's where data doesn't help. So you do have to sort of bring in this heuristic idea of, is this actually what I want to be doing? Because honestly, I can send an email out to our 250,000 followers on email and say, click here and get free sex, and it'll open up really well. But then what's the longevity of that? And so we strive to sort of, you can never balance, you have to be careful to balance engagement to long-term value of the brand. And so if you talk to the guys at Zynga, actually what they do is anytime they launch a new feature, they sort of measure their Net Promoter Score. Internally, they actually have metrics to manage this. And so they have found that NPS is the best sort of predictor of long-term value of a customer. We're too small to be doing that sort of stuff, but neither here nor there. Waitlist, we do a lot of this. Every product that's sold out, we look at the waitlist, and we can tell sort of what the demand is, both across sizes, across colorways. Here it's sort of consolidated, but I can tell that Ryan Pocket Tee Charcoal Heather is in massive demand versus our basic V-necks. Partially because our V-necks are in stock, but also partially because women much prefer the slouchier fit. So how do we use that data? Now we're sort of taking our classic V-neck fit and making it a bit boxier to see if that resonates better with the consumer. So there's a lot of sort of insight you can get around what people are buying, and then adjusting patterns and styles. And by the way, this is why we do our own design, because if we didn't, we can't adjust those patterns. And the other big thing we do is actually leveraging sales data. So, we sold these backpacks, and they did really well, sold them out in 6 hours, and turns out you should predict inventory for more than 6 hours, because when you have to reproduce things like this, it takes 6 to 10 weeks. So we sold out in 6 hours, and now everybody's waiting 10 weeks for the next backpacks. That being said, it was extremely valuable because we could tell very quickly what styles we're selling. And even in 6 hours, you can look at that first hour and sort of pull out that, hey, that was our best seller, so we're gonna go heavier in that. And then we cut out all of these webbings. Even though we had more of the web initially, it sold way slower, and it ultimately sold out, but we know it's not a top style for us. So we cut it out, and the next batch only has the top 2 rows, and we reinvest in certain colors more.